WrestleMania 36 is coming to Tampa, Florida. What's going on out there, world? It's your boy, Tommy on the spot. Thanks so much for checking us out here today on Watchalong Wrestling. Today, there was a big-time WrestleMania 36 press conference that streamed live on WWE's social media platforms. And so today, I'm going to tell you all about it. If there's anything that you guys missed, I'll make sure you guys have all of the critical information about WrestleMania 36, and then what you can expect if you're coming into Tampa, Florida. Yes, this is the second WrestleMania in 4 years that the state of Florida is getting, and it's not even really all that far. I mean, this isn't like a situation where you're having one in Orlando and you're having one in Miami, which would be like a solid 4 to 5 hour drive. You're getting one WrestleMania 33 down in Orlando, followed by WrestleMania 36 now in Tampa. So it was an interesting press conference, though. I'm a huge fan of these press conferences. I will let you guys know this at a time. Despite the fact that most of these press conferences are pretty much exactly the same. They're very cookie cutter. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I always have been a big fan of these press conferences. It's something that I think are really good hype pieces for WrestleMania and for WWE events in general. It makes them feel like a bigger deal than if it were to be something to the extent of not doing these types of press conferences. It allows WWE to get their name out there in the media. It's a big deal now with that WrestleMania comes to a city. So certainly locally, these press conferences are a big deal. Obviously, the Tampa Bay Times was there. A number of the local folks that cover Tampa Bay sports was there. And so it was good for that extent. First and foremost, though, it is great to be back here with you guys. I'm in the midst of about a 10-day regular vacation followed by a staycation, a little bit of work here and there. It's been crazy, so I've been a little bit unplugged, but my plan certainly after Fastlane is to be back here with you guys on a more consistent basis, chatting with you guys and giving you guys a lot of WrestleMania content as we approach our first WrestleMania since the launch of Watchalong Wrestling, at least since the launch, kind of the relaunch of Watchalong Wrestling back last July. So great to be back here with you guys, though, today. And as far as this press conference goes, so I'll give you guys kind of the play-by-play, I guess, to a certain extent. Now, I'm not going to get into every sort of executive that was there. I'm not going to get into, like the Johnson Boers that were there or the mayor of Tampa that was there per se. But I'll talk to you guys a little bit about the superstars that were there, what they had to say, as well as some of the big news coming out of it. So first and foremost, WrestleMania 36, April 5th, 2020. This is going to be, that's the date, the set for WrestleMania next year. Triple H also was on hand to announce that NXT TakeOver will be taking place that weekend. I know there was some sort of confusion about that and some folks that were a little kind of up in the air about it based upon the fact that next year will be the first year in which SmackDown Live will be on Friday before WrestleMania, because SmackDown, obviously, when they move to Fox, is going to be going and doing their shows on Friday. So instead of it being now when you go to a wrestling pay-per-view and you get that 4-day package of NXT followed by the pay-per-view, followed by Raw, followed by SmackDown, it's going to actually be SmackDown starting off first, at least that's how it would assume to be. So you'll get that final stop on the road to WrestleMania, and then it'll be followed by, I guess, NXT on Saturdays, and then Sunday WrestleMania, Monday Raw. What this means for the Hall of Fame, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's going to just go head-to-head with SmackDown, which is possible, but not the most likely because most of the time they utilize the same venue for those events. But for those folks who were concerned about NXT TakeOver not being held that weekend, that does not seem to be the case. Pause for a water chug. Sorry about that. All right, so press conference itself starts out, boom, right out the box. Hulk Hogan, Real American, comes out. Tampa born, Tampa bred, and here comes the Hulkster. And actually, I don't know if he's from Tampa. I know he's down in Tampa now. I don't know if he's originally, I think it's originally from Venice Beach. But in any event, Hogan comes out. People were excited about him being there. But remember with these press conferences, and I'll say this right off the bat, one of the things about these press conferences, and I've been to press conferences for WWE in the past. I've been to ones where it's a public open event. I was there for when they did the McMahon Millions back in the day, if you remember that debacle or whatever you felt about it. They did press conference in New York City for that. So I left work for that, went and did that. That was cool. But I was also at WrestleMania 30 press conference, and that was only open to members of the media. And that event, it's weird because you don't have your fans there. So if anyone's there trying to rile up the crowd, if anybody's there trying to get people excited, it's not the same as it would be on a Raw or SmackDown, where if people are really excited about it, people are pumped up, people are joining in on the chants. They don't have that because a lot of the folks that are in the crowd are your executives or are your media members. And folks that are there to cover the event as media are not going to be chiming in and jumping up and down and doing along with the chant. If you look back at that WrestleMania 30 press conference that was held here in New York City, Daniel Bryan goes out there and he's doing the yes chant. He's screaming yes, yes, yes to nothing. Like there was no sound whatsoever. And if you're a media member, I completely understand it. You don't want to be that guy jumping up and down and doing the WWE chant because no one's going to take you serious. You might even get your credential, taken away. But by not having that, I think the superstars feel a little weird. If you look at like Batista, I remember during that press conference even said like, hey, wake up a little. Daniel Bryan's out here doing yes chants to silence. So it is weird, but I understand why they do it. They want to be presented as more of a official product and something that is something to, a real sports press conference, so to speak. And they don't want to have that where fans are there. But I do think fans would add a little excitement to it and also show these media members that maybe don't follow WWE and are not the most familiar with WWE, the impact that these people have on fans and how interactive it is, because a big part of obviously the WWE product is the fans being so involved, the fans, chanting, screaming, going nuts. We remember that awful Raw a couple of weeks ago that was so bad because nobody was making any noise. And so it was really kind of tough to get behind whatever was going on that show because nobody was making any noise. And that's similar to how these press conferences are. They did broadcast the press conference on Twitter, and there was a live chat function that was going on there. This live chat, that is not the way to include fans. This live chat was distracting. This live chat, there was so many comments for Chris Benoit, so many comments that were just super offensive, and they have this open for fans to just go in there and go buck wild, and that was ridiculous. That was completely over the top, and that is something that I think that they can kind of go away with. Also, I know a lot of people in the live chat were hoping for like Batista to show up and take out Triple H when he was talking, or Becky Lynch to show up at the end of the night and hit Charlotte with a crutch. And hey, that would have been great. Don't get me wrong. It would have been real cool. Like Monday night, if like, for example, the time that Seth Rollins showed up at TakeOver and he said, hey, this show's called TakeOver. And it was like a lot of hype for their match at WrestleMania with his match with Triple H. Similarly, I think they could have done a lot with that in regards to if Triple H had kind of went along with, if today Triple H gets laid out by Batista, this could have been something huge for Raw. Again, though, you're inviting members of the media there. You're inviting executives there. If they get there and Triple H is out there making a legitimate speech, talking about the analytics of what WrestleMania brings to the weekend, it kind of takes some stuff away if you're having Batista show up and lay him out and hit him with a Batista bomb. Though it would have been cool. So it's just not something they do during press conferences. This is something completely separate from what they do on their weekly TV show, as I guess it should be. So, but yeah, so that's kind of my 2 cents on the press conferences. Again, I'm a fan of them. I watch them I try to go out of my way to watch them live. I've taken many a lunch break to go throw on, some social media and see these press conferences. If there's something I should say about the press conference off the bat, there was not nearly as many superstars as in previous years. Previous years, you had folks up and down the card, whether it be, I remember Edge being involved once, and I remember the situation where Edge was there, and John Cena and CM Punk and all these guys up and down the card. This year it was real simple. It was Triple H, you had Stephanie, you had Roman Reigns, you had Charlotte, and then you had Titus O'Neil. Now, one of the things, and then obviously you had Hogan. So yeah, Hogan started the show off, and it makes sense. He is a big name from a perspective that he's a big name. It's not, Hogan, it seems like he's just kind of been thrust back into this role now with situations where they've protected him to a certain extent. His only appearances with WWE since coming back have been in Saudi Arabia, where the crowd was going to boo him. Wasn't going to boo him because that's just, they're kind of in their own realm, so to speak. It was right after Mean Gene died, where no one was going to be heckling Hulk Hogan when he was coming out for a Mean Gene tribute. And then it was here, where again, there's no fans. So we had members of the press there. Hogan came out. he was just kind of talking about Tampa Bay and how excited he was that, WrestleMania was heading there. Wasn't anything too newsworthy, but it is interesting to see that WWE is kind of slowly but surely just ingraining Hulk Hogan back into the WWE family. It's a situation where I think a lot of people were rubbed the wrong way by what Hogan said, and rightfully so. He came out and really said some really terrible racist things, and yeah, he apologized, but he apologized because he was caught saying them, not so much that he was saying them. So it's a tough situation. I'm not really going to get into my full thoughts on it, but it is interesting to see that Hogan is back. Like he's 100% back. He's the legend. He's the ambassador. He's the guy that, moving forward, WWE is going to probably be using similarly to how they did in 2014 when he was there to roll out the network and host WrestleMania and making appearances all over DVDs. I expect that you'll start to see a lot more of the Hulkster as time moves past his, the whole racist incident there with the sex tape and whatever. So that's interesting to see. From there, Stephanie McMahon came out. A lot of, I like these press conferences, but if you've seen one Stephanie McMahon speech, she is so polished. She knows exactly what to say. She knows every buzzword. She's an incredible businesswoman. And this was no different. She talked about the economic impact of WrestleMania. She talked about everything that you could expect with the WrestleMania weekend, how many 60 different countries and over 200,000 people. And it's a huge, huge deal to have WrestleMania come to your city. Next up, Titus O'Neil. Stephanie introduced him directly as being one of the superstars who's going to be, I believe he's going to be at a Be a Star rally later on. This is where Titus is at right now. I feel like Titus O'Neil is going to have a job with WWE for life. And it's not going to be very much in terms of any of the stuff in ring. That's not his role. It's not, he was the guy I remember when I went and volunteered WrestleMania 29. I did the access deal there. Titus came in with Aaron Young and talked about aspirations of being a world champion. I don't think that's ever going to be his deal, but I think he's going to be an ambassador for the company for a very long period of time. The stuff that he's done outside of the ring far outweighs anything that he's done inside the ring and far outweighs what many have done inside the ring. It's really important work that this guy does. He's out there. He's, making speeches and inspiring people and helping to feed the hungry during the holidays. And he's just out there doing a bunch of really good work on behalf of WWE, and this was no different. He is from Tampa, Florida. He's a guy that born and raised in Tampa and has a lot of faith about and was showing a lot of excitement about WWE returning to Tampa Bay. From there, they brought out Triple H, aforementioned. He talked a little bit about Porsche is all hell, guys. I was down in Florida, and I'll explain that in a sec. Triple H came out. He was talking about NXT and how Florida is really the headquarters of all things WWE. Obviously, with the Performance Center, talked a lot about that. That's really kind of where his realm is right now. He then turned things over to John Sabor. Now, John Sabor, if folks don't know who he is, he's kind of the head of all events for WWE. He's the guy who kind of spearheads the whole WrestleMania campaign each and every year. He kind of acts as the host of these events. He was introducing the superstars, but then was also introducing some of the big executives and the folks that were big in Tampa. Brought out the head of Tampa Sports, who came out and just couldn't have been happier that it was finally their time to have WrestleMania at Raymond James Stadium. And they talked about how when they put the bid in for WrestleMania, they had put their bid in a particular turnbuckle pad and then put that over to WWE. And on the turnbuckle pad, it said "Our Time," which is cool, and it shows kind of how many years cities are trying to get WrestleMania to come to. You've heard for years about Minneapolis. You've heard for years about Detroit getting a WrestleMania back. So this year was Tampa Bay, and that's where they'll go. From there, they brought out Charlotte Flair. This was interesting. She didn't say much of anything that was like earth-shattering or anything, but just the way that everything was brought out and kind of presented here. Charlotte came out and said that, and so Charlotte was there. The only other people that were there in terms of like superstars that were acknowledged were Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Natalya in the front row. They all kind of gave a wave to the crowd. They were probably there for like media one-on-ones, and maybe they were going to that Be a Star rally later on. We'll check on that. But it was interesting to see how Charlotte was presented as the tippy-top superstar there, whereas the other folks were kind of in that position that years ago when they did the WrestleMania press conference in Orlando, the NXT stars were. They were out in the front row, they were waving to the crowd, and they were really kind of seen almost as afterthoughts, whereas Charlotte was front and center there making that speech. And then this obviously led to Roman Reigns, who's really been everywhere since he's returned. And I will say Roman Reigns is really coming across, I don't know if it's just from his return that I've really noticed it, but he's coming across as the top guy for all things WWE, as I drop my bottle of water, which is frustrating. All things WWE. He's the face of that locker room. He's the face of the company. And he was out there, out and about. He was making a speech, talking about his favorite WrestleMania moments. And it's funny because he was talking about those nuanced moments that if you've ever attended a WrestleMania, these are the types of moments that you yourself will remember and love. And, you know, I go do this Watchalong Wrestling deal. And I talk about watching old shows and talk about these little tiny things that I remember through the years. And that's similar to what Roman Reigns was talking about. He was talking about being able to come back after WrestleMania and hear about how excited his kids were about everything, and how excited his kids were when Braun Strowman made his appearance, or how excited his kids were where, you know, his daughter was chasing his two sons around. And that really is the type of stuff that you remember. You remember bumping in to your favorite superstar on Bourbon Street, or you remember, you know, chatting with some fans and everybody going nuts when the Undertaker streak ends. That, you know, Roman Reigns, the speech he made about WrestleMania today, if you go back and you watch his part, I thought it was the highlight of everybody who made a speech, everybody who had anything to say about WrestleMania and coming to Tampa. And I thought he did a great job. And you know, again, it's interesting to see where Roman Reigns goes from here, because clearly Seth Rollins, this is his WrestleMania. They've booked Roman great since he's come back, and that he's handing that over to Seth Rollins. He's handing the reins over to Seth Rollins. At the same time, he is kind of taking a step back, but it's clear that, you know, he's the guy. Yeah, you know, and it'll be before long that I'm sure Roman Reigns is right back at the top of that chain of command in WWE, hopefully with the 1A of Seth Rollins. So we'll see. But there's a lot more that'll come out of this. I know there were some media outlets that were on hand there chatting with Roman Reigns, and so we'll probably get a little more news coming out of that. I'll do my best to retweet that stuff, throw that out there if you follow me over on Twitter at WatchWrestlePod. But let's get into Tampa. For those of you who don't know, Tampa's about an hour away from Orlando, Florida, so it's not far. It is not out of the realm of possibility if you want to do what I did during WrestleMania 33 and do WrestleMania Tot style in Florida. Disney, followed by WrestleMania, was about the most fun I'd had in a really long period of time. It was just such a great hype for the show. There was decked out. Wrestling fans were everywhere. I remember dueling AJ Styles, Shane O'Mac chants while waiting a line for Space Mountain. So you could certainly do that. But Tampa itself, let's not forget about Tampa Bay itself. First off, let's start with Raymond James Stadium. This is where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play football each and every week. They'll be on hand. That's where WrestleMania is going to be taking place. This is an outdoor stadium. I don't believe there's any sort of cover or roof or anything like that. So I think that this is really something to think about, and this is something that, you know, Florida also has a ton of rain, tons of rain. And so it's something where it could rain real quick and then be back, but WrestleMania will again be outdoors both this year and next year. So it's a little bit of a different setup. And, you know, I love it. I love when wrestling looks different. I love when it's presented differently. Outdoor WrestleMania works for me. I think back to WrestleMania 31, which was a lot of fun. That was mostly during the daylight. But the Orlando WrestleMania, that was outdoors as well. And that was, you know, by the time it gets dark, you barely notice anyway. But it is a different atmosphere to be there live. Raymond James Stadium also has the huge pirate ship, which obviously got people talking about Kairi Sane. How great would it be to see her come out as a pirate now on the big pirate ship? They do a deal where every time the Buccaneers score a touchdown, the pirate ship takes some cannons out and shoots cannons out into the sky. I could see that going on. That could make for a really fun entrance for Kairi Sane if she were to be on the main roster at that point. There's no reason to believe that she wouldn't. But also be fun to see Pirate Paul Burchill go in the Hall of Fame that year. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but it'd be fun nonetheless. So that's Raymond James Stadium. Excited for that. That should be fun. Where it's the building the Buccaneers play. It's a really cool place. It's a place I've wanted to go to for a while, so that'll be fun to go do that for WrestleMania. Moving right along, Tampa Bay itself. Tampa is also home to Busch Gardens, which is kind of like, if you've been to a Six Flags, that is one of the premier theme parks in all of Tampa. They have they have a lot of really cool roller coasters. They have a safari part of it. It's a great little theme park, very much, kind of based around different countries from around the world. It's kind of like an Epcot Light in a way, but much more focused on your thrill rides than how a Disney would be. So Busch Gardens is fun. Hopefully a lot of fans and folks going down there, you have that to do. And I'm just talking from a perspective of if you want to go down and experience more than just wrestling. They have a great aquarium. They have a great zoo. They have something called Riverwalk, which is a lot of fun. Riverwalk has a lot of different nightlife, bar scene. There's a Hard Rock Cafe. So there is a lot of stuff to do down in Tampa. I think Tampa is going to be a great city. I think people will really enjoy it. And again, you're just a snowball's throw away from Orlando and the happiest place on earth, if that is what you're into. And obviously I am. I host a Disney podcast as well, so I'm into both. But in any event, that is going to do it for me. Let me know in the comment section below what you're thinking about WrestleMania 36. Do you feel like this is too much for Florida? Do you feel like you're excited about this? You're excited to be outdoors in an outdoor stadium, experiencing WrestleMania live? So that is going to do it. Let me know again in the comment section below what you think. Make sure you subscribe to Watchalong Wrestling. Leave a big thumbs up if you like what you see. And stay tuned for more content tomorrow morning. I'll be on with my fast lane predictions and a lot more fun stuff throughout the week. Until next time, everybody, I am Tommy on the Spot. Take care.